The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It stretched across 40 kilometers of open space, a floating cathedral of crystal and light that hung in the void between three dying stars. For 12,000 years, this place had served as the heart of galactic civilization. Wars had been ended here. Species had been uplifted or condemned here. The fate of trillions had been decided within these walls. And today, for the first time in history, humans stood at its center. Ambassador Raymond Cole felt his heart pounding as he stepped onto the accused platform. The circular disc floated unsupported in the middle of the vast chamber, surrounded on all sides by rising tiers of galleries. Each gallery held representatives from the Council's member species. 847 civilizations, thousands of individual beings, all of them staring at the three humans, who stood alone in the center of the universe's judgment. Raymond was 63 years old. He had spent 40 years in diplomatic service, negotiating with governments, corporations, and hostile nations. Nothing had prepared him for this. Beside him stood Commander Diana Ross, 45 years old, her military uniform crisp and her expression carved from stone. She had commanded Earth's defense fleet for 7 years. She had seen combat. She had ordered soldiers to their deaths. But her hands were trembling slightly at her sides. The third human was Dr. Samuel Adami, Earth's leading expert on galactic law and xenolinguistics. He clutched a data crystal in his weathered hands like a priest holding a sacred relic. Above them, dominating the chamber like a god surveying its creation, floated the paramount adjudicator. The being called itself Crystallax, and it was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Its form was pure light given structure, a geometric impossibility of angles and planes that hurt to look at directly. It had judged the fates of civilizations for 3,000 years. It had never shown mercy. The chamber fell silent as Crystalllax spoke. Its voice did not come from any single point. It resonated through the air itself, translated simultaneously into every language known to galactic civilization. Species designation: human, homeworld, Sol 3, locally known as Earth. You have been summoned before this council to answer for crimes against galactic civilization. Raymond forced himself to breathe. He had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. He knew what was coming. But hearing the words spoken aloud in this place, surrounded by beings who viewed humanity as little more than clever animals, was something else entirely. 42 days ago, Crystalllax continued, human military forces launched an unprovoked attack on the sacred moon of the Velrith Dominion. The moon, designated Korath Prime, was destroyed completely. Estimated casualties: 4,200,000,000 Velrith civilians. The galleries erupted. Howls of outrage, clicking mandibles, electromagnetic bursts of fury filled the chamber. The Velrith delegation, a cluster of insectoid beings covered in black and red chitin, rose as one. Their compound eyes blazed with hatred that transcended language. Raymond waited for the noise to subside. It took nearly 2 minutes. How do you plead? Crystalllax demanded. Raymond stepped forward. His voice was steady, amplified by the chamber's translation matrix to reach every corner of the vast space. We plead not guilty. Laughter, mocking, translated across 1,000 frequencies. The sound washed over the human delegation like a wave of contempt. The Velrith High Queen rose from her delegation's gallery. She was enormous, nearly 4 meters tall, her segmented body covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed with precious metals. When she spoke, her mandibles clicked in patterns that the translation metrics rendered as cold, precise fury. Not guilty? You obliterated our holiest site. You murdered 4 billion of our people, including the majority of our reproductive population. Our children, Ambassador. Our future. And you stand before this council and claim innocence? Yes, Raymond said. The High Queen's compound eyes narrowed. On what grounds? Raymond turned to Samuel. The xenolinguist stepped forward, his hand still clutching the data crystal. 47 days ago, Samuel began, his voice cracking slightly before steadying. Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Network detected an anomalous signal originating from Korath Prime. The signal matched no known frequency in galactic records. We dispatched an unmanned probe to investigate. He activated the crystal. A holographic display materialized above the tribunal floor, showing the barren surface of a moon orbited by defense platforms. What we found beneath the surface, Samuel continued, was this. The image shifted, zoomed inward, and showed something that made the entire chamber go silent. A cavern stretched for kilometers beneath the moon's crust. Within it stood machinery of impossible scale and complexity, towering spires of metal that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3, conduits of energy that pulsed with light in colors that had no names, and covering every surface, symbols that predated the oldest known civilization by millions of years. Precursor technology, Samuel said quietly. The word rippled through the galleries like a shockwave. Raymond watched as species that had been united in their hatred of humanity moments ago now exchanged glances of shared terror. The Precursors were the galaxy's oldest nightmare. They had built the hyperspace lanes that connected the stars. They had constructed megastructures that defied physics. And they had vanished 3 million years ago, leaving behind only ruins and warnings that no one had ever fully decoded. Crystallax's geometric form flickered. You claim the Velrith possessed Precursor technology? No, Raymond said, stepping forward again. We claim they were attempting to activate it, and we have footage of what happened when they succeeded. The chamber went absolutely still. Show us. Crystallax commanded. Diana Ross stepped forward. Her face was pale beneath her dark complexion. Raymond knew she had watched this footage more than 50 times. It still made her wake up screaming. Before I play this, Diana said, her voice hard as iron, I need every representative in this chamber to understand what you are about to see. This footage was recorded by our unmanned probe 41 days ago, approximately 6 hours before we launched our attack. She paused. It was our only warning. The holographic display flickered and changed. It showed the underground cavern again, but now the ancient machinery was alive. Energy pulsed through conduits that had been dormant for millions of years. Velrith technicians scuttled around the equipment, their clicks and hisses filled with excitement. Then the central chamber opened, and something stepped out. Raymond heard gasps throughout the galleries. He heard beings that had existed for millennia whisper prayers to gods they had forgotten. He heard the sound of a galaxy confronting its oldest fear. The thing that emerged from the chamber was humanoid in basic shape. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But everything about it was wrong in ways that defied description. Its skin seemed to shift between realities, existing in multiple states simultaneously. Its face, if it could be called a face, was a void that pulled at the consciousness of anyone who looked at it directly. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the symbol burned into its chest. A symbol that appeared on every Precursor ruin in the galaxy. A symbol that xenarchaeologists had spent centuries trying to understand. Samuel's voice shook as he spoke. We finally translated that symbol. 3 days after this footage was recorded, the holographic display showed the symbol isolated, rotating slowly. Below it appeared 2 words in every language known to galactic civilization. Specimen, handler. The Precursors did not disappear, Samuel said, his voice barely above a whisper. They were collected. On the footage, the handler turned, its void face oriented directly toward the camera, toward something beyond the camera. And it began to move. Diana hit a control on her wrist. The footage muted. Chaos erupted in the galleries. Representatives were fleeing their seats. Crystal-Ax was pulsing erratically, its geometric form destabilizing. The Velrith delegation had gone completely still, their compound eyes locked on the frozen image of the thing that had emerged beneath. Their sacred moon. Raymond. Cole's voice cut through the pandemonium like a blade. This is what you need to understand about humanity. The chamber gradually fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and perception organ fixed on the human ambassador. When we saw this footage, Raymond said, we had a choice. We could follow protocol. Alert the Galactic Council. Request permission. Debate. Negotiate. Wait for consensus. He paused, or we could act. He took a step forward on the floating platform. Humanity is the youngest species in this chamber. We have been part of galactic civilization for only 43 years. We do not have your technology, your resources, your ancient wisdom. His voice hardened. But we have something that none of you possess. We have spent our entire existence fighting for survival. Every generation, every century, every single day. We have faced extinction more times than we can count. And we are still here. He pointed at the frozen image of the handler. When we saw that thing emerge, we did not hesitate. We did not debate. We did not wait for permission. Diana spoke, her voice like steel. We destroyed the moon within 6 hours of receiving this footage. Every ship in our fleet, every weapon we possessed. We reduced Korath Prime to radioactive glass. 4 billion Velrith died, Raymond continued. And I will carry that weight for the rest of my life. But that thing died with them, before it could complete whatever it was doing, before it could call others, before it could do to this galaxy what it did to the Precursors 3 million years ago. Crystal-Ax spoke, its voice subdued in a way Raymond had never heard. You took this action without consulting the Council, without warning the Velrith, without attempting any form of negotiation. Yes. Why? Raymond looked up at the paramount adjudicator. For the first time, he let his exhaustion show, his grief, his fear, because we knew exactly what you would do, he said. You would debate. You would form committees. You would send diplomatic envoys. And by the time you reached a decision, that thing would have finished its task. He paused. We have a saying on Earth, those who hesitate are lost. We did not hesitate. And because of that, you are all still alive to put us on trial. The Velrith High Queen rose again. Her voice was different now. Not angry, but something else entirely. Something that might have been fear. You expect us to believe that you saved the galaxy? That humans, the youngest and weakest species in the Council, stopped a threat that none of us even knew existed? Raymond turned to face her. I expect nothing, High Queen. I am simply telling you what happened. He gestured to Diana. But before you decide our fate, there is one more thing you need to see. Something we did not include in our initial evidence. Diana's face went even paler. Ambassador, are you certain? Show them. Diana unmuted the footage. The handler moved forward through the cavern, its movements too smooth, too precise. And then it stopped. Its void face turned, oriented and spoke. The translation, matrix struggled, glitched, then rendered the words in every language simultaneously. Primitive substrate detected. Designation. Genetic anomaly. Flagged for priority retrieval. Initiating handler protocol. The footage cut to static. That transmission, Samuel said quietly, was directed at Earth. The chamber was utterly silent. It knew about us, Raymond said. Before we destroyed it, that thing had already marked our species for collection. We do not know why. We do not know what makes humanity different. But we do know one thing. He looked at the Velrith High Queen. If we had not destroyed that moon, none of us would be here. The Council would not exist. The Velrith would not exist. Nothing would exist except whatever the Precursors became after they were collected. He stepped back, suddenly feeling the weight of every year of his life. You can condemn us now. You can sentence humanity to extinction for what we did. But before you do, ask yourself one question. He looked up at Crystal-X. In 3.7 seconds of transmission, that thing sent a signal into deep space. Somewhere out there, something received that signal. Something is coming. He paused. And when it arrives, you will need us. The chamber remained frozen in silence as Raymond Cole finished speaking. 847 civilizations stared at 3 humans standing alone on a floating platform. And for the first time in galactic history, they were afraid, not of humanity, of what humanity had awakened. 40-7 days before humanity stood trial. Dr. Fatima Osman was alone at the edge of the universe. Outpost Sentinel was humanity's most remote listening station, a tiny structure of metal and glass floating in the darkness between galaxies. It monitored deep space for anomalies, threats, and signals from civilizations yet undiscovered. The station was crewed by only 6 people, and for the past 3 months, absolutely nothing had happened. Until tonight, Fatima stared at her console, certain she was misreading the data. The signal had appeared 17 minutes ago, originating from deep within Velrith territory. It pulsed at a frequency that did not exist in any galactic database. It followed patterns that made no mathematical sense. And it was getting stronger. She ran the analysis 3 more times. The results remained the same. "Commander," she said into her communication device, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I need you in the monitoring bay. Now." Lieutenant Commander James Okafor arrived within 2 minutes, his uniform hastily fastened and his eyes still heavy with interrupted sleep. He was a calm man, methodical and precise, with 23 years of deep space experience. In all that time, he had never seen Fatima look frightened. "What do we have?" he asked. Fatima showed him the data. James studied it for a long moment, his expression revealing nothing. Origin point? Korath Prime, the Velrith sacred moon. James frowned. That's a religious site. No technology, no military installations. Just breeding chambers and temples. I know, but that signal is coming from somewhere beneath the surface. Deep beneath. And Commander? Fatima hesitated. Some of these frequency patterns match fragments from Precursor ruins. James went very still. The Precursors were the galaxy's greatest mystery. They had built the hyperspace lanes that connected the stars. They had constructed ring worlds and Dyson spheres that still functioned after millions of years. And they had vanished completely, leaving behind only ruins covered in warnings that no one had ever fully translated. If the Velrith had found Precursor technology, everything changed. "We need to verify this," James said. "Dispatch an unmanned probe. Maximum stealth. I want eyes on that moon within 10 days." The probe launched within the hour. It took 11 days to reach Velrith space, sliding through hyperspace lanes and avoiding detection by Velrith patrol vessels. When it finally arrived at Korath Prime, what it found exceeded their worst fears. Fatima watched the footage in silence. Her hands were shaking. The probe's sensors had penetrated the moon's crust, revealing a cavern system that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Within those caverns stood machinery that defied comprehension. Spires of metal that twisted in impossible geometries. Conduits of energy that pulsed with light in colors that human eyes could not properly process. And everywhere, covering every surface, symbols that matched the Precursor archives. But the Velrith were not simply studying the technology. They were activating it. "They have no idea what they are doing," Fatima whispered. They think they have found some kind of weapon or power source. They do not understand. Understand what? James asked. Fatima pointed at one of the symbols. That marking appears on every precursor ruin in the galaxy. Our xenolinguists have been trying to translate it for decades. Last year, they finally made progress. She pulled up the translation on her display. It does not mean weapon. It does not mean power. It means warning. James stared at the screen. Warning about what? We do not know. But I think we are about to find out. They continued monitoring the feed for the next 30 hours, watching as Velrith technicians worked frantically around the ancient machinery. The energy readings grew stronger. The symbols began to pulse with increasing intensity. And then, without warning, the central chamber opened. Fatima would remember the next 30 seconds for the rest of her life. The thing that emerged from the chamber was not alive in any way she understood. It existed in multiple states simultaneously, its form shifting between realities like a broken hologram. Its face was a void, an absence of existence that pulled at her, consciousness even through the probe's sensors. But it was the symbol on its chest that made her scream. The same symbol. The warning symbol. Burned into the creature's form like a brand. And now, finally, the translation made sense. Specimen handler, Fatima whispered. The creature moved through the cavern with terrible grace. The Velrith technicians tried to flee. They did not get far. The handler did something to them, something the sensors could not fully capture. Their movements became synchronized. Their chittering fell into patterns that sounded almost like chanting dot, and then the handler turned toward the probe's camera dot. It spoke. The words came through the translation matrix distorted and fragmented. But the meaning was clear. Primitive substrate detected. Designation. Genetic anomaly. Flagged for priority retrieval. Initiating handler protocol. The probe's transmission cutout. James was already moving. Get me a direct line to Earth. Highest priority. Encryption level Omega. Commander, if we transmit through normal channels, it will take weeks to reach the right people. The bureaucracy alone will delay any response. Then we go around the bureaucracy. James accessed his personal terminal and entered a code he had hoped never to use. It was a direct line to Admiral Helena Cruz, commander of Earth's First Fleet, currently stationed 3 systems away. The connection was instantaneous. Admiral Cruz was a legend. She had led humanity's defense during the border wars. She had negotiated the ceasefire with the Korathian Empire. She had earned the grudging respect of species that had existed for millennia. And she was the only person James trusted with what he had just witnessed. Commander Okafor, the Admiral's voice crackled through the speakers. This channel is for emergencies only. Admiral, this is an emergency. I am transmitting footage from Velrith space. You nay. D to see this immediately. There was a pause. Then, transmitting now. James watched the Admiral's face as she reviewed the footage. He watched her expression shift from annoyance to confusion to horror. He watched her reach the moment when the handler emerged, and he watched her go pale. How old is this footage? She asked. 31 hours. And the signal that thing transmitted at the end, was that directed at Earth? Our analysis suggests yes. Admiral Cruz was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. The Council will never authorize action in time. The Velrith will never believe us. By the time anyone agrees to do anything, the thing will have completed whatever it started. I know, James said. You are asking me to act unilaterally, to attack a sovereign species' sacred site without warning, to potentially kill billions of civilians. I am asking you to prevent the extinction of every species in the galaxy. The Admiral closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were empty of everything except determination. I need authorization from Earth's Security Council. Can you maintain surveillance on that moon? Yes. Then keep watching, and pray we are not already too late. The next 6 hours were the longest of James O'Coffer's life. He watched as Admiral Cruz contacted Ambassador Raymond Cole, who was attending a diplomatic function on Earth. He watched as Raymond reviewed the footage and immediately called an emergency session of the Security Council. He watched as politicians debated and argued and demanded more information while the handler continued its work beneath the Velrith moon. Some counselors wanted to follow protocol. Others demanded verification. A few suggested the footage might be fabricated. But one voice cut through the noise, an elderly woman named Margaret Pierce, who had served on the council for 30 years. We have approximately 5 hours before that thing finishes whatever it is doing, she said. The Galactic Council cannot convene in 5 hours. They cannot agree on lunch in 5 hours. By the time they make a decision, it will be too late. She looked directly at Ambassador Raymond Cole. You are proposing that we commit genocide, that we destroy billions of innocent lives without warning. Yes, Raymond said. And if you are wrong? If I am wrong, humanity will be guilty of the worst atrocity in galactic history. We will be destroyed. Our species will be condemned to extinction. He paused. But if I am right, we will have saved every living thing in the galaxy. The vote was not unanimous. 3 counselors voted against, but the authorization passed. Admiral Cruz received the order 17 minutes later. Operation Silent Thunder was go. Back on Outpost Sentinel, Fatima Osman continued monitoring the Velrith moon. The handler had completed its work on the technicians. They now moved in perfect synchronization, chanting in languages that predated known civilization. And something was building in the central chamber, a light that grew brighter with each passing minute. Commander, Fatima said, her voice barely a whisper. I do not think we have 5 hours. James looked at the readings. The energy signature was spiking exponentially. Get me Admiral Cruz, now. The Admiral's face appeared on his screen. Behind her, alarms were blaring. We are already in motion, she said. My fleet will reach the moon in 4 hours. You do not have 4 hours. That energy buildup is accelerating. You need to fire from maximum range the moment you exit hyperspace. Admiral Cruz nodded slowly. Understood. Commander, I want you to know something. Whatever happens next, humanity did not have a choice. Remember that. When the galaxy condemns us, when they call us monsters, remember that we did not have a choice. The transmission ended. Fatima looked at James. Do you believe that? That we did not have a choice? James was quiet for a long moment. I believe that sometimes there are no good options, only less terrible ones. He turned back to the display, watching the handler move through the cavern, watching the light build in the central chamber, watching the last seconds of 4 billion lives counting down. I believe that tonight, humanity chose to survive, and I believe we will spend the rest of our existence wondering if that was enough. The moon of Korath Prime had 37 minutes left. Admiral Helena Cruz had commanded warships for 28 years. She had ordered soldiers into battle, knowing some would not return. She had made decisions that cost lives. But nothing in her career had prepared her for what she was about to do. The First Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Velrith space. 42 vessels, humanity's entire deployable military force. Against them stood the Velrith hegemony's home defense fleet, 217 ships, each one bristling with weapons that could tear human vessels apart. Under normal circumstances, this would be suicide. But Admiral Cruz was not planning a normal engagement. Communications, she said, her voice calm despite the sweat on her palms. Open a channel to Velrith High Command, all frequencies. The response came within seconds. High Marshal Throck appeared. On the view screen, his compound eyes gleaming with predatory amusement. He was the supreme commander of all Velrith military forces, a being who had won battles against species that had existed for thousands of years. To him, humans were barely worth noticing. "Admiral Cruz," he clicked, his mandibles forming patterns the translation matrix rendered as contempt. "You are very far from human space, and dramatically outnumbered. Have you come to surrender?" Helena kept her expression neutral. "We have come to save your species, High Marshal. There is something beneath your sacred moon, something that will destroy everything your people have built. We are requesting permission to neutralize it." Throck's laughter was a harsh, clicking sound. "You expect me to believe that humans have discovered a threat on our most sacred site? A site that has been protected by my people for 8,000 years? Yes. We are transmitting footage now. I ask only that you review it before making your decision." She sent the footage, the underground cavern, the ancient machinery, the handler emerging from the central chamber. She watched Throck's face as he viewed it. His compound eyes widened. His mandibles went still. Then he laughed again. "An impressive fabrication, Admiral. Your propaganda department has outdone itself. But I will not be fooled by special effects and digital manipulation. This is not a fabrication, High Marshal. It is a transparent attempt to justify an attack on our holiest site. You think I do not understand your species? Your history is nothing but violence. You see our devotion to Korath Prime, and you exploit it to manufacture this elaborate deception." Helena's voice dropped to ice. "We are telling you the truth. No, Admiral, you are about to die." The Velrith fleet began its advance. 217 ships, moving in perfect formation, their weapons charging. Helena had 3 seconds to make a decision that would define humanity for centuries. "All vessels," she said quietly, "execute silent thunder." The fleet split. 30 ships formed a defensive screen, accelerating toward the approaching Velrith armada. Their mission was simple: buy time, delay the enemy, die if necessary. The remaining 12 ships, including Helena's flagship Prometheus, broke away at maximum speed toward the moon. The battle began. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than their Velrith counterparts. But the Velrith had numbers and firepower. Within the first 15 minutes, 7 human ships were destroyed. Their crews, a total of 843 people, died instantly. But they achieved their goal. The defensive screen held long enough for the strike group to reach weapons range. Helena watched on her display as the moon grew larger. Sensors showed the energy buildup beneath the surface, still accelerating. The handler's transmission had been running for nearly 4 hours now, broadcasting that terrible signal into deep space. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, his voice tight, "the Velrith defensive platforms are targeting us. We will be in their range in 6 minutes. Time to weapons range? 4 minutes. We fire the moment we are in range. Every weapon, everything we have, Admiral." The tactical officer hesitated. Sensors show 4 billion life signs on that moon. The breeding chambers alone contain 2 billion children. Helena closed her eyes. For just a moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of what she was about to do. Then she opened them again. "I know. Fire anyway." The next 4 minutes lasted forever. Helena watched as more human ships fell to the Velrith counterattack. She watched as the moon's defensive platforms locked onto her fleet. She watched as the energy readings beneath the surface continued to climb towards something unimaginable. And then, finally, they were in range. "All vessels," Helena said. "Fire." The bombardment was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Every weapon humanity possessed rained down on Korath Prime. Kinetic impactors traveling at 90% of light speed. Nuclear warheads measured in gigatons. Antimatter torpedoes that converted matter directly into energy. The moon's surface cracked and melted under the assault. But it was not enough. "The underground chamber is too deep," the tactical officer reported. "We are not reaching it." Helena stared at the display. The handler's signal was still broadcasting. The energy buildup was still accelerating. "Bring the fleet to point-blank range," she said quietly. "Admiral, that will put us within the blast radius of our own weapons." "I know." "Do it anyway." The 12 remaining ships of the strike group descended toward the moon's shattered surface. They fired everything they had left, driving their weapons deeper and deeper into the moon's crust. And then, finally, they broke through. The underground chamber collapsed. The ancient machinery was crushed beneath billions of tons of molten rock. The handler's signal cut off. After 3.7 seconds of transmission, but the detonation of the Precursor. Technology created a shockwave that nothing could. Survive. Helena watched as the moon cracked apart, its fragments spinning outward in a sphere of destruction. She watched as 3 of her ships were caught in the blast, vaporized instantly. She watched as the Velrith fleet stopped its advance, its vessels frozen in horror at the sight of their sacred moon disintegrating. And she watched as 4,200 million life signs winked out of existence on her sensors. The bridge was silent. Her first officer, Commander Thomas Wright, stood beside her. His face was the color of ash. "Admiral," he said quietly, "the Velrith fleet is withdrawing. They are heading toward the debris field, looking for survivors. There will not be any. No, there will not." Thomas looked at her. "Did we have a choice?" Helena did not answer for a long time. She stared at the debris field that had once been a moon, at the expanding cloud of destruction that contained the remains of 4 billion people. "We had a choice," she finally said. "We chose to let 4 billion die so that trillions could live. We chose to commit an atrocity because the alternative was extinction." She paused. "History will judge whether we chose correctly." The surviving ships of the First Fleet limped back toward human space. Behind them, the Velrith hegemony began to scream for vengeance. Within hours, a galactic council was convening. Within days, humanity was summoned to stand trial. But Helena Cruz did not care about the trial. She did not care about history or judgment or the hatred of 1,000 species. She cared about one thing: 3.7 seconds. That was how long the handler's signal had transmitted before they silenced it. 3.7 seconds of alien code, broadcasting into the depths of space, telling something, somewhere, that the galaxy was still here, that intelligent life still existed, that new specimens were available for collection. 3.7 seconds might as well have been an eternity. Elena stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as it crawled through hyperspace toward home. Around her, her crew went about their duties in silence. No one spoke. No one celebrated. They had just killed 4 billion people. There was nothing to celebrate. But Helena was not thinking about the dead. She was thinking about what came next. The handler had been destroyed. The Precursor technology was buried under a moon's worth of rubble. But that signal had gone out. Something had received it. And sooner or later, something would respond. When that happened, the galaxy would need to be ready. And that meant the galaxy would need humanity. Helena Cruz had just condemned her species to be hated by every civilization in the galaxy. She had made humans the most reviled beings in known space. But she had also proven something that no other species could claim. When the moment came, when the choice was between doing nothing and doing the unthinkable, humans would act. They would pay any price, bear any burden, commit any atrocity, because that was what survival required. And humanity, above all else, survived. She looked out at the stars streaming past, and she allowed herself one moment of hope. Maybe, when the collectors finally came, The galaxy would understand. Maybe they would be grateful. Or maybe they would destroy humanity first and face the coming darkness alone. Either way, Helena Cruz had done her duty. The rest was up to history ... while the tribunal continued in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. A very different investigation was taking place in the archives beneath. Dr. Samuel Adeyemi had not slept in 4 days. The archive chamber surrounded him with holographic displays, each one showing fragments of precursor texts recovered from ruins scattered across the galaxy. For 3 million years, these symbols had defied translation. Scholars from 1,000 civilizations had spent their lives trying to decode them. Samuel had cracked them. In 3 weeks. It was not genius that allowed him to succeed where others had failed. It was desperation. While the tribunal debated humanity's fate above, Samuel had worked without rest, driven by a single question that haunted him since he first saw the handler's transmission. Why did it target Earth? The handler had emerged from 3 million years of dormancy. It had found itself surrounded by Velrith technicians from a spacefaring civilization. And yet, its first action had been to flag a species from a small planet in an unremarkable system, a species that had barely begun exploring the stars. Why humans? The answer, Samuel was beginning to realize, would change everything. Dr. Adeyemi. The voice came from behind him. Samuel turned to find a being he had never seen before. A creature of flowing silver liquid that shifted constantly, never holding the same shape for more than a second. I am Archivist Prime Quantum, the being said. One maintained the Precursor collection. I was told you requested access to the restricted archives. Yes, I need to see the warning texts. The complete collection. Quantum's form rippled with something that might have been hesitation. Those texts have been classified for 8,000 years. No non-council species has ever been granted access. I understand, but the information I am looking for could determine whether the galaxy survives the next decade. Bold claim. The handler transmitted for 3.7 seconds before we destroyed it. Somewhere out there, something received that signal. I need to know what we are facing. Quantum was silent for a long moment. Then its form flowed toward a wall that had appeared solid, revealing a hidden passage beyond. Follow me, Doctor, and prepare yourself. What you are about to learn has driven scholars to madness. The restricted archives were older than the Council itself. They contained the original Precursor tablets recovered from the first ruins discovered 12,000 years ago. Samuel moved through the chamber in reverent silence. Surrounded by artifacts that predated everything he knew, Quantum led him to a specific display, a massive tablet covered in symbols that pulsed with faint light. This is the Warning Stone, Quantum said. It was found at the heart of the largest Precursor ruin ever discovered. For millennia, we believed it was a historical record, a description of how the Precursors met their end. But it is not? No, it is a prophecy. Or perhaps a plan. We are still not certain. Samuel studied the symbols. With his new understanding of the Precursor language, he could read them clearly now. And what they said made his blood run cold. The text spoke of beings called the Collectors, entities that had existed since before the galaxy formed. They traveled between galaxies, harvesting intelligent species for purposes that the Precursors could not comprehend. The Precursors had been one of their targets, collected 3 million years ago, along with thousands of other civilizations. But the text also spoke of something else. A resistance. A hope. The Precursors knew they could not fight the Collectors directly, Quantum explained. Their technology was too advanced, their numbers too vast. So they did something else. They created a template, a genetic pattern that would, over millions of years, evolve naturally into a species immune to the Collector's influence. Samuel's hands were shaking. A species that could not be harvested. Exactly. The precursors called it the anomaly, a genetic configuration that would resist collection, resist control, resist assimilation. They seeded this template across thousands of worlds, hoping that at least one would succeed. Samuel looked at the symbol that had haunted him for weeks. Specimen handler. The handler recognized humans, he said slowly. It flagged us for priority retrieval because we matched the anomaly pattern. That is our analysis as well. According to the warning stone, the anomaly was not supposed to emerge for another 50,000 years. Human evolution proceeded far faster than the precursors predicted. So we evolved too quickly. What does that mean? Quantum's form rippled with uncertainty. We do not know. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. But there is one more piece of information you need to see. The archivist led Samuel to another display, smaller than the first, but pulsing with the same faint light. The symbols here were different, more complex. This was found in a separate ruin, thousands of light years from the warning stone. It appears to be a continuation of the prophecy, or perhaps a contingency plan. Samuel read the symbols. His face went pale. This says the anomaly was designed to be a weapon, a species capable of fighting the collectors when they returned. But it also says, he stopped. He could not make himself continue. It says the anomaly was never meant to survive the activation. Quantum finished quietly. TH. Precursors created humans to fight a war, but they expected you to die in that war. You were designed to be a sacrifice, a final desperate gamble to buy time for the galaxy to escape. Samuel stood in silence, surrounded by artifacts older than human civilization, and tried to process what he had just learned. Humanity was not an accident. They were not the random product of evolution on a small blue world. They were weapons created by a civilization that had been dead for 3 million years, designed to fight an enemy they had never known existed, and they were never supposed to survive. I need to bring this to the tribunal, Samuel said finally. The council needs to know what humanity is. They will not believe you. Many of them already want humanity destroyed for what you did to the Velrith. If you tell them that humans are weapons designed by the precursors, they will be even more afraid. Maybe fear is what they need. Samuel gathered his data and made his way back to the tribunal chamber. The session had been ongoing for hours, with species after species demanding humanity's execution. The Velrith delegation had presented endless evidence of the destruction, showing images of the shattered moon, the debris fields that contained billions of corpses. The children who would never be born of Ambassador Raymond Cole stood on the accused platform, absorbing it all in silence. When Samuel arrived, he requested permission to present new evidence. The paramount adjudicator Crystalax granted his request with obvious reluctance. Samuel stepped onto the platform beside his colleagues and activated his display. What I am about to share comes from the restricted Precursor archives, he began. It explains why the handler targeted Earth, and it explains why humanity may be the only hope this galaxy has. He presented his findings. The warning stone, the anomaly template, the prophecy that had been waiting 3 million years to be fulfilled. The chamber fell absolutely silent. Humanity was not an accident, Samuel said. We were created, designed, engineered to be resistant to the collector's influence. We are the precursor's final weapon against an enemy that harvested entire galaxies. The Velrith High Queen rose slowly. Her compound eyes were unreadable. You are saying that humans were designed to fight these collectors? That you are some kind of ancient weapon? Yes. And you destroyed our sacred moon, killed 4 billion of our people, because you believed you were fulfilling some ancient prophecy? Samuel shook his head. No, we destroyed your moon because a handler was about to complete its transmission. We did not know any of this until after the attack. We acted on instinct, on the desperate need to survive that has driven our species since we first evolved." He paused. "But now we know the truth. Humanity was created for this moment. We were designed to stand against the darkness when it returns. And it is returning." The High Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice strange and hollow. "Our scientists were in contact with the underground chamber until the moment of destruction. In their final transmission, they were not speaking as scientists. They were not speaking as Velrith." Her compound eyes dimmed. They were chanting in a language none of them knew, moving in perfect synchronization. And they were smiling. She looked at Ambassador Cole. Whatever that thing was, it had already taken them. They were no longer my people. They were specimens. The chamber was utterly still. "I do not forgive humanity," the High Queen said. "I will never forgive what you did. But I understand now why you did it." She turned to Crystalax. "I withdraw my demand for human extinction." The tribunal erupted in chaos. Species were shouting, arguing, demanding explanations. But beneath the noise, a fundamental shift had occurred. Humanity was no longer on trial for genocide. Humanity was being evaluated as a weapon. And that, Samuel realized with growing dread, might be even more dangerous, because the question was no longer whether humanity would survive the tribunal. The question was what the galaxy would do with them if they did. The tribunal had been suspended for 3 hours when the alarms began. Ambassador Raymond Cole was in a holding chamber with Commander Diana Ross and Dr. Samuel Adeyemi, waiting to learn humanity's fate. The Galactic Council was debating behind closed doors. 847 civilizations trying to decide whether humans were monsters to be destroyed or weapons to be preserved. Then every light in the station turned red, and a sound Raymond had never heard before filled the air. It was a deep, resonating tone that seemed to vibrate through solid matter. Around him, alien guards went rigid with fear. "What is that?" Diana asked, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon she no longer carried. One of the guards, a tall being with crystalline skin, turned to face them. Its voice was barely a whisper. The arrival warning. It has not sounded in 6,000 years. Raymond felt his blood go cold. Arrival of what? The guard did not answer. It simply pointed toward a viewing portal in the chamber wall. Raymond moved to the portal and looked out into space. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just the familiar arrangement of stars and the distant glow of the 3 dying suns that illuminated the council station. Then he saw it. At the edge of the visible system, a point of darkness had appeared. But it was not truly dark. It was an absence, a void in the fabric of reality itself. And it was growing. "Samuel," Raymond said, his voice steady despite the terror building in his chest. "Tell me that is not what I think it is." Samuel joined him at the portal. His face went gray. "The collectors," he whispered. "They received the handler's signal. They have come." The void continued to expand. As it grew, Raymond began to perceive something within it, shapes that defied comprehension. Not ships, exactly. Not structures. Something else entirely. Something that existed in dimensions human. Eyes could not properly see, and it was moving toward the council station. Within minutes, the tribunal chamber had reconvened in emergency session. Representatives from 847 civilizations filled the galleries, but the usual political tensions had vanished. Every being in the chamber was staring at the holographic display that showed the approaching void. Crystalax spoke, its geometric form pulsing with barely controlled agitation. "The Galactic Early Warning Network has detected a massive energy signature at the edge of our system. Analysis suggests a vessel or structure of unprecedented scale. At its current speed, it will reach the station in approximately 18 months. 18 months. Raymond felt the number settle into his mind like a stone. 18 months until the end of everything. We must evacuate, a delegate shouted from the upper galleries. Scatter across the galaxy. Hide until they pass. They will not pass, Samuel said quietly. The chamber fell silent as all attention turned to the human xenolinguist. The Precursor archives are clear on this point. The collectors do not simply raid and move on. They are systematic, thorough. Once they identify a galaxy containing intelligent life, they harvest it completely. Every species, every world, every individual. Then we fight, another delegate declared. We combine our fleets. We strike before they reach us. With what? Diana Ross stepped forward, her military training evident in every movement. Our combined military forces might number 10,000 vessels. What we are looking at represents technology millions of years beyond our own. We would be insects attacking a hurricane. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species were screaming at each other, at the humans, at Crystalax. Some were already fleeing toward their ships, desperate to escape before the collectors arrived. Others simply sat in stunned silence, watching their universe end. Raymond Cole climbed to a higher platform. His voice, amplified by the translation matrix, cut through the pandemonium. Enough. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and perception organ fixed on the human ambassador. You can run, Raymond said. You can hide. You can spend the next 18 months in terror, waiting for the darkness to swallow you. Or you can do what my species has always done. He looked at Diana, then at Samuel. You can fight. Crystalax's form flickered. You speak of fighting the beings who harvested the Precursors? The most advanced civilization in galactic history? Yes. And how do you propose we accomplish this impossible task? Raymond smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We have been preparing for this since we discovered the footage. While you were debating our fate, while your politicians argued and your diplomats negotiated, humanity was building. He gestured to Diana. Diana activated her wrist display. A new holographic projection filled the chamber, showing schematics, fleet deployments, weapon specifications. Project Prometheus, she said, the largest military undertaking in human history. 97 new warships, each one incorporating every advancement we could develop. Weapon systems based on reverse-engineered precursor technology. Strategic plans designed specifically for an enemy of overwhelming technological superiority. Samuel stepped forward. And something else. Our xenorchaeologists have been studying every precursor ruin we can access. The precursors knew they could not defeat the collectors directly, but they left behind defensive systems, weapons they never had time to activate. We have been learning how to use them. The Velrith High Queen rose slowly. Her voice was strange, hollow in a way that spoke of grief beyond measure. You have been preparing for war, while standing trial for the murder of 4 billion of my people. We have been preparing for survival, Raymond said. As we have always done, he addressed the entire chamber. I will not pretend humanity is innocent. We destroyed your sacred moon, High Queen. We killed billions. And if I could go back, knowing what I know now, I would do it again. Because that is what survival requires. He paused. But we do not have to fight alone. The collectors are coming for all of us. Every species in this chamber is a target. Every civilization, every culture, every child born on every world. His voice dropped. You can put us on trial. You can find us guilty. You can execute every human in existence. And when the collectors arrive, you will face them without us. He looked at Crystalax. Or you can do something your civilizations have never done before. You can trust us. You can fight beside us. And maybe, just maybe, we can show the collectors that this galaxy will not go quietly into the dark. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the Velorith High Queen began to move. She descended from her delegation's gallery and crossed the vast floor of the tribunal chamber until she stood before the platform where the humans waited. "I do not forgive you," she said. "I will never forgive what you did. My children are dead because of your actions. My species may never recover." She paused. "But my scientists were already lost when you fired your weapons. They had been taken, changed, made into something else. You did not kill Velorith on that moon. You killed specimens." Her compound eyes met Raymond's. "I will not demand your destruction. Instead, I will demand your service. You were designed to fight the collectors. Then fight them. Prove that the deaths of my people were not in vain." One by one, other delegations began to rise. The crystalline beings of the northern reaches, the gas giants of the Nebula Collective, even the ancient silicon entities who had not spoken in the council for 3,000 years. Crystallax's form stabilized. When it spoke, its voice carried a weight that Raymond had never heard before. "This tribunal is suspended indefinitely. Ambassador Cole, Commander Ross, Dr. Adeyemi, you are released without conditions." It paused. "Additionally, by unanimous emergency declaration of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby designated as the coordinating species for all defensive efforts against the approaching threat. You will have access to the combined resources of 847 civilizations. Use them wisely." Raymond stared at the paramount adjudicator. "You are putting humans in command of galactic defense. We are putting the anomaly in command of our survival. It is what the precursors intended. It is what logic demands." Crystallax's geometric form pulsed slowly. "Do not fail us, Ambassador. The cost of failure is beyond calculation." Raymond nodded slowly. Beside him, Diana was already transmitting orders back to Earth. Samuel was pulling up the Precursor archives, searching for anything that might help Dot as the human delegation moved to leave the chamber. The High Queen spoke one final time. "Ambassador Cole." Raymond turned. "My people have a concept called blood debt. When one takes a life, they owe a life in return. You have taken 4 billion lives from my species." Her mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translator could not render. "When the collectors come, I expect you to pay that debt. Every Velorith that died on that moon, you will answer with the death of a collector." Raymond met her gaze without flinching. "When the collectors come, High Queen, I intend to answer with the death of all of them." He turned and walked out of the tribunal chamber, into a galaxy that now looked to humanity for salvation. Behind him, through the viewing portals, the void continued to grow. 18 months. In 18 months, the collectors would arrive. In 18 months, every living thing in the galaxy would face the same enemy that had harvested the precursors 3 million years ago. But in 18 months, they would also face something the collectors had never encountered before. And Hunter. Anomaly. A species designed to resist them. Species called humanity. And as Raymond Cole walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council Station, surrounded by beings who had wanted him dead only hours before, he allowed himself one moment of grim satisfaction. The precursors had created humanity as a weapon, a sacrifice, a desperate gamble against an unbeatable foe. But they had made one mistake. They had given humans the ability to choose their own fate, and humanity chose to survive, whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, whatever came next. Collectors were coming, and humanity would be ready.